Have you ever been swept up in a panic over something that turned out to be, well, nothing? It happens to the best of us. Today, we're time traveling back to 1737 London to uncover a tale of citywide anxiety, festive fears, and a whole lot of raisins. This is the story of the great pudding shortage that wasn't, picture this, it's early December in Georgian London. The air is crisp and filled with the smell of coal smoke and roasting chestnuts. Christmas is just around the corner, and for Londoners, that means one thing is on everyone's mind: Christmas pudding. Back then, this wasn't just a dessert. It was the centerpiece of the holiday feast. A rich, dense boiled concoction of suet, flour, spices, sugar, and dried fruit. Families had their own treasured recipes passed down through generations. Making it was a ritual, a symbol of prosperity, and a warm, full belly during the coldest time of year. For many, Christmas without a proper pudding was simply unimaginable. It would be like having a birthday without a cake, or a summer's day without sunshine. The pudding was that important. So you can imagine the ripple of unease that started to spread through the city's markets and alleyways? A rumor began to circulate, whispered from stall to stall, from pub to parlor. It started small, a murmur here and there, but soon it grew into a full-blown wave of concern. The rumor: a catastrophic shortage of Christmas pudding was imminent. No one was quite sure where the story started, but the message was clear. This year, there might not be enough pudding to go around. Think about the supply chain of the 18th century. There were a number of 24-hour supermarkets or online delivery services. If you wanted ingredients, you went to the market. If the market was out, you were out of luck. Ingredients like raisins, currants, and exotic spices traveled for months on sailing ships from far-flung corners of the world. A delayed shipment, a pirate attack, or a storm at sea could genuinely lead to shortages of these precious goods. So, when people heard whispers of a pudding crisis, it didn't sound completely absurd. It sounded plausible, even probable. The panic, however, wasn't exactly the kind of rioting in the streets chaos we might see in a disaster movie. It was a very British, very 18th century kind of panic. Concerned citizens would huddle on street corners, their brows furrowed. "Did you hear, Martha? Not a raisin to be found east of Temple Bar." Another might reply, "Good heavens, George! What will we tell the children?" Housewives began checking their pantries, counting their stores of candied peel and nutmeg with a newfound sense of urgency. The price of suet reportedly saw a brief, speculative spike in some neighborhood markets as people tried to buy up what they could just in case. The city's bakers, the professional pudding makers, were fielding a constant barrage of questions from anxious customers. The festive cheer was being overshadowed by a dark, plum pudding-shaped cloud of doubt. So what was the source of this citywide scare? A fleet of spice ships sunk by a tempest? A warehouse fire that consumed London's entire supply of dried fruit? The truth, as it often is, was far less dramatic and infinitely more human. After a few days of mounting tension, a few enterprising journalists, or perhaps just some very nosy neighbors, decided to trace the rumor back to its origin. They followed the trail of whispers from the grand houses of the West End to the bustling markets of Cheapside. And where did the trail end? Not at the London docks or a government office, but at the door of a single, small bakery in a quiet part of the city. The culprit was a baker, a man known for his excellent puddings, but also, it seems, for his tendency to worry. Let's call him Mr. Figgins. Mr. Figgins had been preparing his ingredients for the massive Christmas rush. He'd ordered his sacks of flour, his barrels of suet, and his crates of raisins. But one afternoon, as he was taking inventory, he had a moment of pure, unadulterated panic. He counted his bags of raisins, counted them again, and came to a horrifying conclusion. He was short, he had miscalculated. He didn't have nearly enough to fulfill his orders. In his distress, Mr. Figgins confided in a customer. "It's a disaster," he probably lamented, wringing his flour-dusted hands. "I haven't enough raisins for the puddings. There's going to be a shortage." That customer then told their neighbor. The neighbor told a friend at the market. The friend told a shopkeeper. And like a game of telephone, the message got twisted and amplified. Mr. Figgins's personal raisin crisis quickly became a city-wide raisin shortage, which then morphed into the terrifying Great Pudding Shortage of 1737. A single Baker's counting error had inadvertently sent a ripple of fear across a metropolis of 500,000 people. The resolution was just as anticlimactic as its cause. Once the source was identified, the story unraveled. Someone probably went back to Mr. Figgins's bakery and helped him recount. Perhaps they discovered the missing bags of raisins tucked away in a corner of the storeroom, right where they'd been all along. The news spread almost as quickly as the original rumor, but this time it was met with laughter instead of fear. You'll never guess. It was just old Figgins miscounting his fruit again. The panic subsided as quickly as it had appeared. Suddenly, the markets were full of ingredients again, or rather, they had been all along. Bakers assured everyone that pudding production was proceeding as normal. Housewives across London let out a collective sigh of mild relief. There would be pudding on Christmas Day after all. The great crisis was over before it had ever truly begun. The city returned to its usual festive preparations, the brief scare becoming an amusing little anecdote to share over a pint of ale. The incident was quickly absorbed into the city's oral history. It wasn't significant enough to make it into the major history books, but it became a piece of local folklore. People would tell the story for years to come, a cautionary tale about the dangers of rumor and the importance of double-checking your inventory. It demonstrated something fascinating about human nature, our willingness to believe in a crisis, especially when it concerns something we hold dear. But it also showed our ability to laugh at ourselves once the dust settles. What I find most charming about this story is its sheer lack of drama. In an era filled with genuine dangers, fires, plagues, political upheaval, the Great Panic of 1737 was about dessert. It's a wonderfully human story. There were no heroes, no villains, just a slightly overcautious baker and a city that really, really loved its Christmas pudding. The event became a minor, funny footnote in London's history, retold precisely because it was so harmless and easy to summarize. It requires no deep emotional investment, just a chuckle at the absurdity of it all. This story serves as a perfect reminder that not every scare is a real catastrophe. Sometimes the monster under the bed is just a pile of laundry, and the great pudding shortage is just a baker who can't count his raisins. It's a sweet, funny slice of history that proves that sometimes the most anticlimactic events are the ones we remember most fondly. They remind us not to take every rumor at face value and to, perhaps, always have a backup supply of raisins, just in case. So next time you hear a wild rumor spreading like wildfire, take a moment to think of the Great Pudding Shortage of 1737. It might just be one person, somewhere, having a bad day and miscounting their own version of raisins. Thanks for joining me on this trip back in time. If you enjoyed this little-known story from history, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tailies you won't find in the textbooks. Let me know in the comments if you've ever been caught up in a panic over nothing. See you next time.